In the car world, being ahead of your time isn't always a good thing. Some vehicles introduced groundbreaking technology, futuristic designs, or innovations that should have changed the industry. But instead, they were ignored, misunderstood, or simply released at the wrong time. Today, we're looking at 10 cars that were miles ahead of their time, but nobody cared. Some of these vehicles had features that only became mainstream decades later, while others were too radical for their own good. Had they been released just a few years later, they might have been legends. But instead, they were forgotten, underappreciated, or complete sales failures. Let's dive into some of the most futuristic flops in automotive history. 1. 1934 Chrysler Airflow. First aerodynamic car that nobody wanted. In the early 1930s, car design was all about big, boxy bodies and massive grills. But Chrysler saw the future and decided to create the first truly aerodynamic car. The Chrysler Airflow was built using wind tunnel testing, had a streamlined body, and was one of the first cars to focus on weight distribution for better handling. It also had a stronger unibody structure, which made it safer than most cars of its time. But instead of embracing this futuristic design, customers hated it. People thought it looked weird and ugly, and the radical styling scared off buyers. Sales flopped, and Chrysler was forced to return to more traditional designs. Today, almost every car follows aerodynamic principles, proving that the Airflow was decades ahead of its time. But back then, nobody cared. 2. 1958 Citroën DS, car that floated on air. The Citroën DS looked like something from another planet when it debuted in 1955. With its futuristic design, hydropneumatic suspension, and advanced aerodynamics, this French car was way ahead of the competition. Its suspension system allowed it to literally float over rough roads, and it had power steering, power brakes, and self-leveling suspension, things that didn't become common until decades later. It was also one of the first cars to have disc brakes. So why didn't everyone go crazy for it? While it was popular in Europe, it never caught on in the US market, where muscle cars and big V8 sedans were the trend. Plus, its complex technology scared away some buyers. If this car had been released in the 1980s, it would have been a game changer. But in the 1950s, it was just too advanced for its own good. 3. 1966 Oldsmobile Toronado. First American front-wheel drive muscle car. When you think of muscle cars, you think of rear-wheel drive, big V8s, and smoke-belching burnouts. But in 1966, Oldsmobile did something crazy. They built a front-wheel drive muscle car. The Toronado packed a 7.0 liters V8 with 385 horsepower. But instead of sending that power to the rear wheels, it powered the front wheels. It was the first American front-wheel drive car since the 1930s, and it came with a torque steer so strong it could yank the steering wheel out of your hands. Oldsmobile saw front-wheel drive as the future, but muscle car buyers weren't convinced. They preferred the classic R.D setup, and while the Toronado was technologically impressive, it never got the love it deserved. Today, front-wheel drive is everywhere, making this car a true pioneer. But at the time, nobody cared. 4. 1970 NSU Row 80, a Wankel-engined luxury sedan that nobody trusted. In the 1970s, NSU, an innovative German automaker, tried to reinvent the luxury car with the Row 80. It was sleek, aerodynamic, and packed with cutting-edge features like front-wheel drive, disc brakes on all four wheels, and powered-assisted steering. But the real highlight, a revolutionary rotary, Wankel engine. This lightweight, high-revving engine should have been the future of performance cars. So why did it fail? The rotary engine had terrible reliability, and NSU didn't have the resources to fix it. Engines often failed after 30,000 miles, and repair costs were insane. Customers lost trust, sales collapsed, and NSU was eventually bought by Volkswagen. Today, Mazda is the only company that kept the rotary dream alive. But the 080 remains a sad story of a genius idea ruined by poor execution. 5. 1981 DeLorean DMC-12. The stainless steel dream that flopped. Everyone recognizes the DeLorean DMC-12 from Back to the Future, but when it was released in 1981, nobody cared. Designed by John DeLorean, it featured stainless steel body panels, gull-wing doors, and a futuristic design. It was supposed to be the Ferrari of the future, but instead, it had terrible performance, a gutless 130 APU-D6, and quality control issues that made early models unreliable. By the time people appreciated its cool design, the company had already gone bankrupt, and DeLorean himself was caught up in a drug scandal. Now it's a cult classic, but in the early 80s, it was a failure. 6. 1988 BMW Z1. The sports car with disappearing doors. The BMW Z1 was a roadster unlike any other. It had plastic body panels, a fully aerodynamic underbody, and the craziest feature of all, doors that slid down into the body instead of opening outward. It was built using experimental materials, and BMW only made 8,000 units. It was way ahead of its time, but it was also too expensive and too niche, so most people ignored it. Today, those sliding doors seem like something from the future, but back then, nobody cared. 7. 1991 Mazda 787B. Only rotary engine to win Le Mans. The Mazda 787B was a racing legend that got no love when it mattered. It was powered by a 4-rotor Wankel engine that produced 700 horsepower and could rev to 9,000 RPM. It became the first and only rotary-powered car to win Le Mans in 1991. You'd think this would have changed everything, but instead, rotary engines were banned from Le Mans the following year. Mazda never got the chance to capitalize on this success, and nobody outside of racing fans cared. Today, the 787B is considered one of the greatest race cars ever, but back then, it was just another Le Mans winner that faded away. 8. 1996 GM EV1. First modern electric car that got crushed. Decades before Tesla made EVs cool, GM built the EV1, the first mass-produced electric car. It had a range of about 100 miles, a sleek aerodynamic design, and proved that electric cars could be practical. But instead of revolutionizing the market, GM killed it. They recalled and crushed nearly every EV1, ensuring that it would never succeed. Why? Because EV technology threatened the oil industry and traditional car sales. Had the EV1 been given a real chance, we might have had electric cars decades sooner. Instead, it became one of the biggest missed opportunities in automotive history. 9. 2000 Honda Insight. The first hybrid that nobody wanted. Before the Toyota Prius became the king of hybrids, Honda actually got there first. The 2000 Honda Insight was the first hybrid sold in the US, offering incredible fuel efficiency of up to 70 mph. It had lightweight aluminum construction, a futuristic aerodynamic design, and a tiny 1.0 liters 3-cylinder engine assisted by an electric motor. It should have been a game changer, right? Well, not exactly. People weren't ready for hybrids yet, and the Insight's odd 2-seater design and weird styling didn't help. Most buyers didn't understand why they needed a fuel-efficient car when gas was cheap, so it flopped hard. By the time the Prius took off a few years later, the Insight was already a forgotten relic. If it had launched in 2010 instead of 2000, it might have dominated the market. Instead, it was just a failed pioneer, ahead of its time, but completely ignored. 10. 2005 Mercedes-Benz SLR McLaren. Supercar that nobody appreciated. In the mid-2000s, Mercedes and McLaren teamed up to create the SLR McLaren, a supercar that combined F1 technology with luxury grand touring. It had a supercharged 5.4 liters V8, making 617 horsepower, carbon ceramic brakes, an F1-inspired brake air brake, and a top speed of 208 miles per hour. So, why didn't people care? At the time, the SLR was seen as too heavy, too luxurious, and not as thrilling to drive as its rival, the Ferrari Enzo. It also had an automatic transmission instead of a manual or dual clutch, which turned off purists. Today, with modern supercars getting heavier and more comfortable, the SLR McLaren looks like a visionary masterpiece. But in 2005, it was considered a confusing hybrid between a GT and a hypercar, and most enthusiasts ignored it. Now, it's a multi-million-dollar collectible, but back then, nobody cared. As history shows, being ahead of your time isn't always a good thing. These cars had game-changing technology, bold designs, and futuristic features, but they arrived too early, were misunderstood, or were simply ignored. So, which of these forgotten futuristic cars surprised you the most? Let us know in the comments. And don't forget to like, subscribe, and hit the bell for more mind-blowing car content.